So people who had worked under me were getting promoted to management ranks, and I wasn't. It was pretty openly told to me, my boss, that they had not thought of me as a managerial material.
For today's guest, Kanwal Rekhi was a pioneer who moved from the dust of pre-partition Punjab to the high-stakes boardroom of California. More than the founder of Excelan or the co-founder of TIE, he's a mentor capitalist who realized early on that wealth is a tool, but community is a legacy.
Saw somebody who had worked for me leave and become an entrepreneur. Beauty of America is that nobody stops you from doing anything. Nobody will help you, but nobody will pull you down either.
Last year, I ended up quitting my job to take some sort of an entrepreneurial venture. This podcast is kind of like a part of this.
I got separated from the family in the temple, and there was a flood. So that one memory of me standing in the sea of water is still with me. It's not a shame that you failed as an entrepreneur. It would be a shame that you didn't even try.
The more you know, the more the unknown grows. I am Jitesh Vaswani, your host, and together, let's take this journey beyond the known. They say that to build something new, you first have to break the ground. But for today's guest, breaking ground wasn't just about a building. It was about shattering a ceiling that had stood for generations. Before Silicon Valley looked the way it does today, there was a pioneer who moved from the dust of pre-partition Punjab to the high-stakes boardroom of California. He didn't just play the game, he changed the rules. In 1987, he became the first Indian American to take a company public on NASDAQ, a moment that signaled to an entire diaspora that they no longer had to wait for an invitation to lead. With his upcoming memoir, The Groundbreaker, he's pulling back the curtain on the risks that terrify and rewards that transform. Kanwal Rekhi, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm actually very inspired by your journey because I come from India, and my grandparents were from Sindh before partition, and they were very young when they had to leave everything behind and flee to India and as refugees, and then of course they had to start all over again. I'm curious to know about your journey and how does I think I was watching some of your videos. You were very young when the partition was happening. Walk us through what was happening. Do you have any memories of those times, or is it just stories that you have heard from your parents?
I was only 2.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So having memory is
It's hard.
But I do have one memory. That I mentioned. So when we crossed over the border from Lahore to Firozpur, Firozpur was on the other side of Satluj, on the Indian side. I got separated from the family at the Gurudwara in the temple. And there was a flood. There was a flash flood in Firozpur. All I remember is that I'm standing on this high, set of plinth, and there's water all around me, and I'm separated from family for a few hours. And my father came, looking for me, and he found me eventually. So that one memory of me standing, in the sea of water is still with me. Almost. That's 1947, right?
Yeah. So which part of India did you guys settle in?
So ours was a military family.
Okay.
So my father, we crossed over in Firozpur. We went down south to Sikandrabad. Sikandrabad, next to Hyderabad. And from there, I think we were there maybe 6 months a year. Went down to Pune, Dew Road, Pune, which, again, a military cantonment. And we were there maybe 1 or 2 years. And from there, we went to Agra. Agra was in UP. Maybe we were there a year or 2 years. But family finally settled in Kanpur in 1954. So, 7 years after the partition, we finally settled in Kanpur in UP.
Nice. And And I was noticing that you were doing a book tour in India recently. How was it going back? Did you visit your, where you come from, the cities where, you grew up in Kanpur, or did you go there, or?
On this trip, I didn't make it to Kanpur. This trip was very hectic. We were there a total of 33, 34 days, and we did 13 cities in those, and mostly major metros. So Kanpur didn't make the list, but I went to Bombay, IIT Bombay, my alma mater. That's where the book launch happened. First event was there at IIT Bombay, and I don't have any immediate family in India. All my siblings are in US. And my brothers and sister. And my mother also had moved to US. She passed away about 30 years ago. But cousins, all my uncles and aunts are gone, right? I'm 80. They would be in their 90s or over 100 years. So I have cousins, who are, first cousins, who are in their 60s and 70s and 80s. And I lost touch with most of them because I left, 58 years ago.
And in those days, I would believe that, international calls are anyways so expensive and so hard to make, and there was no internet. How would you even stay in touch, right?
Well, international calls were almost, besides the point, because most people didn't have telephone in India.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah. There were no telephone lines in India, right?
Mm.
And of course, the internet wasn't there. When I first got here, the letters, mostly went by C-mail. And turnaround on those letters was about 3 months. You write a letter, and 3 months later you get a response. Eventually, they became airmail, and the turnaround went down to about maybe 3 weeks. And you were totally cut off from India. There was no Indian music, no Indian food. There is no Indian news anywhere on the TV or in the newspapers in the US. And you were sort of doing cold turkey overnight, right? When we got here, it was a total transformation.
What brought you here? What was the motivation behind? You went to IIT Bombay. You're probably one of the smartest brains in the country at the time, and was it in search of a career, or was there something else that was motivating you?
Well, so IIT brand that we have now wasn't there. The IIT brand didn't mean anything back in 1967. The IITians had not established themselves as smart people yet, right? And so also, India was a socialist economy where government had taken over all the industry.
Oh, wow.
There were no jobs for us. There were no jobs to do any design work or any technical work. The best you could hope was to get a job at Tata's as a management trainee, or a sales trainee for a foreign company. So there was no exciting work in India. And here in the US, you had the space program, you had the computers happening, you had the interior circuits happening. So all the work was here, all the excitement was here. And US had opened up to us. 1965, Hart-Celler Immigration Act of 1965 opened up to the non-Europeans. If you are a technically qualified person, technology, engineer, scientist, you are welcome to US. So
Okay.
so no jobs in India, and this door opened up and said, "Come on over," right?
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, and you worked in computers even at IIT Bombay. Was that your field of study?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Yeah, there were no computers in India.
Right.
There were
And
not. There were no computers at IIT Bombay when I went there. I studied power engineering, electrical engineering, motors, generators, transmission lines, yeah, yeah, power engineering, and then I got to US, and there's no electrical engineering at the university, no power engineering at university. I went to Michigan Tech.
okay.
Overnight, you have to change and become either control systems, computers, logic design, and I opted for the computers very quickly.
Interesting. And I think at that time, computers was probably the in thing, right? Like, because, like nobody else had access to computers in the world, and it had a lot of scope for innovation. And, computers that we see now is pretty much, I mean, the trajectory is kind of set, I think.
Well, so back then, 1967, again, the computers and mainframes, big, massive IBM machines, by and large, filled up the whole, whole room, with the cabinets. So it was behind the glass walls. You could never touch a computer. You could see through the windows, but you could interact with the computer from outside there, right? The computers we have now are very accessible, right on your desktop. Computers went from mainframes to mini computers to, microcomputers to desktop machines, right? So it's a different world, from 90, but you could interact with computers, write software, and without having to enter the computer room, right?
Interesting. So, double E to computer, and was it just because the university did not have a program, or were you also like really interested in the computer
No, I was
science?
very interested in computers.
Okay.
I was very interested in computers. So but university didn't have the power anyway. So I had to choose between computers and control systems. Control systems are things that make things happen, right?
Yeah.
And so I was into computers, right away.
So how was this young engineer's journey, who is at Michigan Tech, went on to become, one of the biggest entrepreneurs we know from Indian diaspora?
Well, so as I write in my book, when we arrived, people didn't believe, that we were smart. People didn't think, we would, we were capable of becoming managers. As a matter of fact, expectations were very, very low. And even though we were doing well, you were seen as maybe an outlier. Billion people, of course, they have a handful of smart people, and maybe you're one of those outliers, right? It was not till mid-70s, 7-8 years after I was here, there was a realization that there was a generation of Indians coming, mostly IITians, who were very smart, who were very competent, very capable. And so we were getting the respect as engineers. But again, we were not seen as a managerial material. Can you sell? Can you manage? Can you market? Can you? Of course you can design. And we know that. So there was a glass ceiling, on how far you could go in life. And you were boxed into this narrow, technology box, right?
What was the do you have any incidences when you were, let's say, setting up your company, or even, before you set up your own company, when you were in a, working on jobs, do you remember incidences or stories or examples or days where you experienced that glass ceiling?
Yeah, of course, before, right? So people who had worked under me were getting promoted to management ranks, and I wasn't, right? So, so by 1977, 1978, it was very clear to me that, we were typecast, as techies. That doesn't mean that we weren't getting respect as the engineers. We were getting a lot of respect and a lot of raises, money wise. We are making the money, but you are not going to management ranks. And at some stage in your life, 10 years after, let's say you are out of college, you max out as an engineer.
Right.
And you have to learn to manage the teams, do the project management. And we were not seen as, it was pretty openly told to me by my boss that they had not thought of me as a managerial material. And but then I saw somebody who had worked for me, leave and become an entrepreneur, around 1980, 81. And I mentioned in my book, I use a pseudonym, David Jackson. David Jackson had left the company and had become an entrepreneur. And all of a sudden it hit me that, hey, David is fine, but I'm much smarter than David. I trained David. If he has the nerve to go start his own company, what's stopping me? And that one thought alone was enough to, destabilize me as a person. Yeah. If David can become an entrepreneur, why can't I be an entrepreneur?
Interesting. And how many years into your career were you at that point?
About 10 years.
Yeah.
1969 is when I finished my master's and started working. This is 1979, 1980, 10, 11 years.
Wow. So it's very interesting. I see a lot of parallel, like, for example, I came here with, I got a master's degree in electrical engineering. I studied electromagnetics, microwaves, antennas. That was kind of my specialization. Then I, got a job as a design engineer at NXP Semiconductors. And it was used to be Freescale, or it used to be Motorola, but I joined Freescale, then it became NXP. And then eventually I worked there for like 10 years. And I think, like what you mentioned, I kind of maxed out as an engineer. Like, I learned what I had to learn already. And then eventually last year I ended up quitting my job to take, some sort of an entrepreneurial venture. And this podcast is kind of like a part of this. So thank you for inspiring a generation of Indians who can take that, who can take that plunge.
Yeah. See, the beauty of America is that nobody stops you from doing anything. Right? Yeah, you're on your own. Nobody will help you. But nobody will pull you down either. Right?
Yeah.
So the entrepreneurial path was a very obvious path for people like me to take. If I think I'm good, if I think I'm better than David Jackson, then I have to go prove it.
Right. So you started Excelan. Was that your first venture?
Yeah, my first venture. We started Excelan in early 1982.
Where did you get the idea of Excelan? Like, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, it's about computer networking, right?
Yeah. So
what was the thought process? How did you come up with the idea?
So So I am already thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, looking for things to do, looking for an idea. 1981, is the year, watershed year when the world changed. IBM announced IBM PC, the personal computer for the desktop. We had personal computers from Apple, MSI, Altair, several of them, but they were hobbyist. They were meant for home, hobby use. IBM announces a personal computer for business, desktop. We already have mainframes. We already have mini computers. We already have Unix Supermicros, and here's a desktop PC. And all of a sudden, there was this feeling that these computers will have to talk to each other. Data will have to be shared. The databases will have to be centralized. So there was this notion that the mainframe, was going to give way to distributed computing with all these hodgepodge machines, interacting with each other. So thinking of networking idea came from there. Somebody is going to have to network all these. But also that year, Digital, Intel, and Xerox, three of them teamed together to announce a protocol called Ethernet. Ethernet was a protocol. They proposed to network disparate computers, and all of a sudden, things were starting to add up for me. And so, Digital, Intel, and Xerox announced the specifications, and they also announced that chips to implement Ethernet would be available in 3 to 5 years. So they put this 3 to 5 year time horizon that the chips will become available. And so I picked up the specification right after it was announced, and I started to read them, and I very quickly realized I could build Ethernet boards for almost all the computers that we have very quickly using off-the-shelf chips. Because I started doing the logic design, system design back in 1969, when you had to build your own boards from very basic building blocks. So I was a wizard in computer design, logic design. And within 2-3 weeks, I was able to sketch a design, and I said, this should work. And that became the basis of Excelan.
Wow, that's incredible. And then by then, had you already decided that you're going to leave your job and then start this as your own journey, or was there a thought that maybe I should give this idea to my manager and let the company?
No, so I worked for a defense contractor.
Yeah.
I worked for a defense contractor from 1971 through 1980 almost, 79, November, December. So by that time, I'm feeling that a defense job is not a way to grow if you want to become an entrepreneur. And I'm thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. So I switched from defense world to commercial world. So I left my job of 9 years making good money. I had to take a pay cut to go into commercial world. So I was already on that track of thinking of becoming a commercials, eventually an entrepreneurial person, right? So I am doing my thinking. I'm doing my research. When the IBM PC is announced, and the Ethernet is announced, and all of things, start to line up for me. And by December of 1981, we decided to go. But we had the idea, and we had formed a small team, 3 of us. And we set the date, in April of 82, we will start our company, which we did.
And how many years before the company became public?
It was very quick. So we went we started in April of 1982, and we went public in February of 1987. So little, little less than 5 years.
Wow.
Mostly because the networking was very hot. Everybody needed it, and our solution started to work fairly well by the middle of 1985.
And did you have your own assembly, like factory or manufacturing facility where you were manufacturing these boards?
Yeah. So these are the days before the outsourcing, right? So you have to manufacture your own stuff. So we had a small assembly line.
And when the company became public, like, and you were probably the only Indian owner or ownership company who became public, right, at that time. Did you ever feel alone?
Yeah. So every step of the way, I was the first one, right? Entrepreneur, becoming CEO, taking company public. I was always first. So, so you meet new set of people, and they all have the same reaction to you. An Indian entrepreneur, an Indian CEO, an Indian public company CEO. So there's this reaction every step of the way, right? And so being a CEO is a lonely job anyway. Being an Indian CEO was super lonely.
How did you deal with it?
I had a happy marriage. My wife was very good partner. She was always encouraging me to do the things. I'm also a little bit of a spiritual, religious person. I'm a Sikh. And so I got a lot of strength from my faith. And if you read the history of Sikhs, Sikhs had a pretty tough time, 17th, 18th, 19th century, right? There was a price on the head of Sikhs by Mughals. Most of the 18th century, right? So the Sikhs were sort of used to drawing the strength from inside, right? Most of the Shabbats are about there's a I don't know if you ever heard Chardi Tala. Chardi Tala, keep your spirits up. We pray that every day. God help me, keep my spirits up, right?
Hey, a quick pause. If you're listening to this and thinking, I need more peace in my day, more clarity in my mind, then I'll really encourage you to check out The Art of Living. The Art of Living offers a technique called Sky Breath Meditation, used by CEOs, pro athletes, and high performers around the world to recharge their energy, clear that mental fog, and reset the nervous system in minutes. They offer programs both online and in person. It is science-backed and it works. Head to artofliving.org to learn more. Interesting. I mean, I have a lot of, love for Sikhism. Being a Sindhi, like there was I would say like a mixed culture.
Sindhis were right, and then Nanatpanthis, they were into Sikhism a lot, right? They didn't become the turban Sikhs, but the faith was by and large, a mixture of Hinduism and Sikhism, right?
Exactly. So I was like raised like that, like a mixture of Hinduism and Sikhism, and I consider myself to be a very spiritual person. I do my breathing practices, meditation practices that I've learned from Art of Living, and I've been doing that for many. I think I would say a couple of decades now. So so for you drew your strength from your faith, and and of course a happy marriage, and you continued your journey.
Yeah. So the life, we can talk about that later. Yeah. The work life was sort of a little bit straight. You have to set everything up. It's nothing but business. It's all business, numbers and all that. So you're on your own, right? And but my home life was very, very, very happy marriage. I had wonderful children. And by 87, when we went public, half of my family had already moved from India to US. My two brothers and a sister had moved. My mother had moved. So there was an extended family, already. And by 1990, all my brothers, and their families had moved from India to US. So we were a very happy, large clan, here in the Bay Area.
That's amazing.
So the family became a source of strength, right?
So let's talk a little bit about Excelan, right? Like, and what lessons we can derive from your journey being the CEO of a company. Let's say if a young person is watching this right now who wants to start in the tech industry, and what qualities were you looking for at that time for somebody to hire, like in a tech company? And what do you think makes a person stand out, to be successful in now the pace of the world, which is advancing technologically, is also 10x of that time, right?
Yeah, pace was always accelerating, right? And so you have to be technically very competent. That's the table stakes, right? Smarter people than you in technology, all around you, right?
Yeah.
So to become an entrepreneur, you have to develop leadership skills. Leadership basically says you have to be able to inspire people to come work with you. And believe in you. And in my case, that was doubly true because the Indians had not been CEOs before, and most of my team was not Indian team, even though I had Indians in my management team. My CFO, my sales VP, my marketing VP were non-Indians. And so you have to be able to inspire them. They have to believe in you. And so you have to have a very sharp focus on the right things, sharp focus on numbers, define success in a very clear terms that everybody can relate to. And also you need to make sure that everybody has this enough stake in the business. So they're not just employee mindset. They are also mindset of one of the founders, right? So almost all the management team had enough ownership in the company. So they would do well if the company did well. So coming back to, you have to have this leadership thing, but then you have to have a very sharp perspective on the market. What market you're going after, what needs, unfulfilled needs that you have identified, and how do you serve that better than anybody else? So you need to develop a theory of your business, that everybody around you can believe in. So my initial thought was, hey, all these computers are there, they will have to talk to each other, they'll have to share files, they'll have to do things that we take for granted right now. But they were very, well, and back then in 80s. And how do I sharpen and narrow my focus just to do that? There's a temptation to do more, right? And because you think of market window is closing, blah, blah, blah. But my thing was, how do I win in this narrow niche? And then, then we'll worry about expanding our reach. So I had developed a very sharp, perspective. Yeah, we are solving this one problem and this one problem only, and we need to do it urgently and better than anybody else. And that we did, and we did that by late 85, early 86. We had become very successful in identifying the customer needs and responding to them.
And your business was primarily B2B, right?
It was all B2B.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were connecting computers in an office, right?
Yeah. Did, I feel like when I was reading up a little bit about your journey, talk to us about the time when IBM denied to hire you, and did IBM eventually become your customer?
Yeah. So IBM didn't deny to hire me in the beginning, right? Because they did offer me a job back in 1969.
Okay.
That I sort of, being arrogant, didn't take the job, and then did them the reason why I was not taking the job. IBM felt a little bit slighted that I would turn them down without explaining, without giving them a chance to change my offer. And so that's when they blackballed me. Because IBM was 70-80% of the computer business in 1970 when this happened. So they couldn't even imagine anybody in this industry would turn their offer down. So of course IBM became partner, customer later. Everybody, but only because we were helping connect IBM mainframes to all these other computers. Even though IBM had their own solution, but IBM could connect only their own computers. They couldn't connect to the mini computers and Unix machines that we could do for them. So we were sort of a partner with IBM in the marketplace. We were completing their solution, we were helping them sell mainframes or into the environments, where there were other machines available, present, I mean.
So you denied them first, and then they basically
they came back and said, since you denied us, you're not eligible for a job with IBM.
That is so unfair.
Nobody would do that anymore. Nobody would do that in writing anymore. But I had a letter to prove that IBM blackballed me.
Wow, they gave it in writing.
They wrote, but back then that was the only way to communicate, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So when I reapplied for a job with IBM in 1971, after I got laid off a couple of times, that's when they reminded me that I was ineligible for a job with IBM forever.
Forever. Wow. Not even, there's no time limit also.
No time limit. I'm sure they don't have that information anywhere, but that's what they told me back then.
Do you feel they missed out on you?
I don't know who missed out. But so let me tell you another part of the story.
Yeah.
So my friends who went to work for IBM, when I turned them down, they always thought of me as a foolish guy, right? Because how could you turn down IBM? That's everybody's dream job, right?
Right.
And so by mid 80s, when I'm doing my startup, IBM is in trouble. IBM mainframes are in trouble. So IBM is laying off people in droves. And so these guys were getting laid off now in their 40s. And so I had a last laugh, right? Because I had become independent person, and they still were depending upon a job at IBM, and IBM didn't need them anymore.
And then eventually, of course, like you mentioned, IBM partnered with Excelan. It almost feels like a full circle moment.
Almost everybody partnered with us. We network all sorts of computers, in a company.
Wow.
Apple PC, IBM PC, Unix micros of all types, mini computers of all types, mainframes. So we were able to network everything.
So talk to us now. Like you have your company set up. It's public, right? And how did you plan your exit, like from Excelan, and then of course how did you end up co-founding TIE, and why was that important to you?
So we went public in '87. So there was, and that means, you're liquid, you can sell your shares, you can live well, right? So there was no need to do anything, at that time, right? 1987, there was a bit massive market crash. Stock market crash, very big one. Stock market went from 2,700 down to 600.
Oh wow.
Within 2 weeks. So all of a sudden, Excelan shares, which were selling at about $18, $20, they were down to $4 to $5. So sort of, didn't impact us internally much because we were profitable, we were growing nicely, but everybody's wealth started to reduce very quickly.
Yeah.
So so you have this feeling now, right? So year later, things were starting to recover, but people were shaken up a little bit, and then Novell and Microsoft came crawling to acquire us. The technology, we were technology rich. Both of them thought they could use our technology. So Novell offered us a very good stock market price, 50% premium. So our board, felt that was a very good offer to take, and so we merged with Novell, and it was a start tier, and so Novell was very profitable, very good company to work for, and so the merger basically sort of freed me up as a CEO. I was not, but I was at Novell for 5 years after that merger as a number 2 person. So putting Excelan behind was only a step, right? And so leaving Novell in 1995 was more of a decision. I was tired of being number 2. Having been number 1, and and I was sort of, I felt I should have gotten the number 1 job, and I didn't get it at Novell, and so it was time to move on. Time to do something else. I didn't need the money anymore. This is now 1995. I am 50 years old. I have not taken any vacation for a long time. Very focused on business. So it was time to step back a little bit, smell the roses, pay more attention to the family, pay more attention to my children. So I decided to take a year off. And before I did something else, and that year became a very fruitful year because we had started TIE back in 92, 93. And TIE was started when a handful of us met and we compared notes, and we all realized that we had a very similar lonely journey. Schwartz Patel, who was the founder of Cirrus Logic, there were 6, 7 of us. We all had a very lonely journey. Nobody believed in us. Nobody mentored us. Nobody was available to mentor us. And so from that discussion came the idea, it shouldn't have been that hard. We should encourage our people to become entrepreneurs. We should become the mentors. We should become the role models. and the TIE was launched back in 92, fall of 92. And I leave Nobel on January 1st, 95. After the first of the year. And I'm taking a year off, and my wife is not used to having me at home.
Yeah.
I've been working, all those years. And so I set up an office at Nobel office, TIE office. I set up where I would take my newspapers, my magazines, and my laptop computer, and just to pass away time. And the word spread very quickly that people could come and see me and get an hour of my time, without, any appointments, because I was, in the office alone.
Yeah.
And before I knew, I got very busy, helping, mentoring people, creating their business plans and all that. So that's how I got pulled into TIE full time. Mentoring large number of people, 4, 5, 6, 7 people a day. And, eventually, through that process, I also got pulled into investing in some of those startups. And, so before I knew, I was busier than ever.
Was TIE only for mentoring, or was TIE, one of the missions of TIE was to fund startups, or no?
No, it was, TIE's mission was not to fund startups.
Okay.
TIE's mission was to foster entrepreneurship is the line we use. So inspire younger people to become entrepreneurs, provide them, mentoring, provide them, role models, and but eventually it became very clear, if you're investing time into startups, you might as well invest some money. But that's your money going into startup. Not TIE doesn't have any money. TIE doesn't have any funds, right? So TIE became a network within which people could discover each other, discover their mentors, discover their potential partners, discover their potential employees, and discover some potential angel investors.
And TIE is still active, right? It's still, TIE is still active.
TIE is very active. TIE has gone from strength to strength to strength. TIE is now a worldwide organization, right? And we have 23, 24 chapters in the US and 23, 24 chapters in India.
Okay. Wow. Are there chapters here in Arizona, Phoenix?
I think so. I think there's a TIE chapter in Phoenix. Yeah, if I remember right. I think there's a chapter in Phoenix.
Okay. Interesting. I would probably love to meet up some fellow entrepreneurs and.
I'll have to find the information, but I am sure there's a TIE chapter in Phoenix. I'm trying to look for it, but Los Angeles. Phoenix, Arizona. There's a TIE chapter.
There you go. Okay.
Somebody by the name of Kanwal Rekhi is the president of TIE Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there now from that journey to now writing the book? What inspired you to write the book? Tell us a little bit more about the book, and what inspiration will the readers derive from reading your memoir?
So my son. So I write blogs on LinkedIn. And they were very popular. I've been writing those forever, and so my son one day said, "Dad, he was looking through the blogs, and he had been gathering them. There's so much material here. That you to write a book." And after he pushed me a little bit, I said, let's do it. And so he helped me find a a co-writer, a ghostwriter, who is very successful, a journalist in Southern California, and who will help me organize my thoughts and my plots, and that's how the book started. It took a long time. So the first version of book came, and I couldn't figure out, who am I talking to, what message am I delivering to them. So it became a little bit, sort of blasé, and so I had to become a little bit more serious, So once we decided, that story has to be more than my life journey. My life journey is great, but why would that interest anybody? So story became much more, I enlarged the canvas, rise of India from, independence to now. The rise of Indian Americans in America. And I am one of the microcosm of that, right? So the story that you had done, like that. And so the book started to read much better when we did that. And so we sharply focused on that. The initial book was 400 pages. We trimmed away lots of stuff, which was really didn't, fit in this new thing. So book is only 280 pages and very sharply written. It talks to young entrepreneurs. It also talks to Americans to explain to them what happened here, how some Indian Americans came from nowhere and became the CEOs, entrepreneurs overnight.
Especially in the tech world.
Well, yeah, especially in the tech world, but we have a CEO of Pepsi Cola.
That's true.
We have a CEO of Citibank. We have a CEO of MasterCard, right? CEO of Federal Express now. CEO of Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
So it's more than the technical world, right?
Yeah. That's incredible.
Aetna Insurance, I can go down the list. Honeywell,
Yeah.
these all have Indian CEOs.
Yeah. That's incredible. I have one last question to ask you. If the young Kanwal from India were to meet you right now, a lot of people ask, what would you tell them? But I would flip the question. What would he say to you?
Well, he would be surprised, right? Young Kanwal was very shy, with a low self-esteem as a person. And, so he would be surprised, how far, that I went in life. And, he would be surprised that I became a public celebrity, right? And I'm able to talk to the crowds. I'm not shy anymore. I don't have low self-esteem anymore, right?
Yeah. And any last message for our listeners? Who is a combination of, young entrepreneurs, leaders?
Yeah, my basic message to people is entrepreneurship is the ultimate self-expression. It's giving yourself a chance to achieve your full potential. Nobody else from outside will tell you to become an entrepreneur. Nobody else has a right to tell you to become an entrepreneur because it's inflicting some hardship on yourself for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But you will never find out how good you are or how good you could be without plunging in and taking the journey. So I tell people, it's not a shame that you failed as an entrepreneur. It would be a shame that you didn't even try.
Okay. With that note, I would encourage everybody to search Kanwal Rekhi on Instagram, on Google, and check out his new book that is coming out. And I think I heard from your publicist, it's coming towards the end of this month, right?
Yeah, February 24th is the launch date.
February 24th is the launch date. So pre-order And if you're listening to this after February 24, then order. And there's something that we can learn from. I feel like you went against all odds, Kanwalji, and somebody who has done that. Not only did you illuminate the path for yourself, but for thousands more who were coming behind you. So we appreciate you, and thank you so much for your journey and also for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, a quick pause. I want to share a resource I've personally trusted for years. And when it comes to living well, not just in moments of meditation or reflection, but in everyday life, what we put into our bodies matters deeply. And that is why I love Shri Shri Tattva. It's a brand rooted in authentic Ayurveda, from daily wellness supplements to natural personal care, all crafted with ancient wisdom and modern purity. No shortcuts, no hypes, just products that support real well-being from the inside out. For me, it's all about alignment between what I practice and what I teach and how I live. And Shri Shri Tattva helps me bring some of that care into my daily routine. You can explore their offerings at shrishrittattvausa.com. I highly recommend checking them out. The link is also in my description below. I want to share something I've been personally loving. Shankara's Ghee Sutra is one of those rare products where ancient wisdom meets modern skincare. It's crafted from ghee that's churned 10,000 times. Yes, 10,000. Blended with Ayurvedic botanicals like hibiscus, bamboo, and it penetrates deep, up to 7 layers, to nourish, hydrate, and bring your skin back to life. No harsh chemicals, no surface level fixes, just deep, authentic care from the inside out, like everything we talk about on this show. You can check it out at shankara.com, and trust me, your skin will thank you. The link is also in the description below.